Hello and welcome to another lesson which deals with the subject of media choices in advertising. As we have already discussed, media choices depend upon a host of factors including objectives, timing and content of advertising copies and advertising programs. In this lesson, we shall be covering a few more topics. 1. Evaluation of advertising effectiveness, importance and difficulties. Number 2, methods of measuring advertising effectiveness. Number 3, the communication effect. Number 4, sales effects. And finally, number 5, pre-testing and post-testing. The subject expert for this lesson is Ms. Adiba Bari, a management professional with specialization in marketing and international business. And I am Amrita Ghosh Kumar. So let us begin today's session with our very first topic, evaluation of advertising effectiveness. Advertising effectiveness is the degree to which an advertisement or advertising campaign achieves its stated objectives. Advertising effectiveness is typically gauged by measuring a campaign's impact on sales, brand awareness and/or market share. Effectiveness is the measure of the gap between results and objectives. Lower the gap, higher the effectiveness. Thus, it is an evaluation of the advertising process. Measuring the effects of advertising is very important given the amount of investments needed for advertising. The reasons and importance for evaluating the effectiveness of advertising campaign are as follows. 1. To determine if the objectives set for the advertising campaign are met. This, of course, presupposes that measurable objectives were set in the first place and that these objectives are in line with the overall marketing objectives and strategies. First success of any effectiveness research would be that it forces managers to think clearly and put down on paper for themselves and others what they expect the advertisement to do. Number 2, to quantify the return on the campaign investment. By knowing what was achieved, management can then relate that information to opportunity cost of money and determine cost effectiveness of the advertising campaign. Of course, this is an ideal situation. Measurement of advertising results is seldom precise enough to make this quantification possible. Number 3, to use the results of effectiveness research to make changes, additions or completely alter course for future campaigns. No advertising campaign is totally successful. It can always be improved upon. Evaluations of previous campaigns are a great help here in improving and refining the elements and makeup of future campaigns. Number 4, it acts as a safety measure. Testing the effectiveness of advertising helps in finding out ineffective advertisement and advertising campaigns. It facilitates timely adjustments in the advertising to make advertising consumer-oriented and result-oriented. Thus, a waste of money in faulty advertising can be avoided. Number 5, provides feedback for remedial measures. Testing effectiveness of advertising provides useful information to the advertisers to take remedial steps against ineffective advertisements. Number 6, avoids possible failure. Advertisers are not sure of results of advertising from a particular advertising campaign. Evaluating advertising effective helps in estimating the results in order to avoid complete loss. Number 7, to justify the investment in advertising. The expenditure on advertisement is considered to be an investment. The investment in advertising is a marketing investment and its objectives should be spelled out clearly, indicating the results expected from the campaign. The rate and size of return should be determined in advance. If the expected rate of return is achieved in terms of additional profits, the advertisement can be considered as an effective one. Number 8. To know the communication effect. The effectiveness of the advertisement can be measured in terms of their communication effects on the target consumers or the audience. The main purpose of advertising is to communicate to the general public and existing and prospective consumers the various information about the product and the company. It is therefore desirable to seek post-measurements of advertising in order to determine whether the advertisement has been seen or heard, or in other words, whether they have communicated the theme, message or appeal of the advertising. Number 9. Compare two markets. Under this procedure, advertising is published in test markets and the results are contrasted with other markets, so-called control markets, which have already had the regular advertising program. The measurements made to determine results may be measurements of change in sales, change in consumer attitudes, changes in dealer display, and so on, depending upon the objectives sought by the advertiser. One, soft objectives. Unlike the hard physical measurement that can be made of the meters of cloth woven in a loom shed, the objectives of most advertising campaigns are much softer and subject to interpretation. Interpretations present an inherent problem when any measurement is made on people, particularly when the objectives are communication effects such as awareness, knowledge, liking, or even past purchase recall. Although measurements for advertising often cannot be precise as those for sales promotion and direct marketing, objectives can be set and measured. Number 2, measurement over time. Because most advertising campaigns run over several weeks or even a year, it is often difficult to pinpoint the exact results of the campaign. In many instances, the campaign effects may build up over time. In addition, there is the jagged effect of advertising. A stock of previous advertising has effects which cannot be overlooked. Number 3, multiple advertising and marketing variables. Even when measuring the communication effects of the advertising campaign, there is a problem in differentiating what is advertising and what is not. One cannot also ignore the fact that advertising is but one variable in the marketing mix and other variables too could have a communication effect. And number 4, the problems of human memory. Human beings simply do not remember everything, and they certainly don't remember all the advertising they have seen or been exposed to. Although more and more is being learned about how the human mind works, it still is almost impossible to say whether advertising goes into short-term memory, long-term memory is dismissed, is stored, or what happens to advertising impressions. Until there is a better understanding of how human memory works, it is difficult to say exactly what should be measured, and even if the use of recall and memory is the best way to evaluate advertising impressions. Now let us look at the 3 methods used to conduct advertising effectiveness research. 1. Day after recall, or DAR. Day after recall studies are used to evaluate the impact of creative execution, especially for new brands or new campaigns. These are most commonly used for television campaigns. A group of respondents is surveyed the day after the commercial is released on television. People who have seen the programs or programs on which the commercial appeared are questioned to determine top-of-the-mind recall, unaided recall, and aided recall. Number 2, coincidental studies. Coincidental studies attempt to measure and evaluate consumer exposure and reaction to the advertisement. It is particularly effective with broadcast advertising. The most common type of coincidental study is the telephonic interview. For example, an advertiser may want to determine whether the advertising message is reaching the target correctly or not, and will want to learn how and what information is being conveyed. Telephone calls are made to members of the target market while advertisement is being broadcast on either the television or the radio. By learning what station or which shows are being watched or heard, the advertiser knows whether or not the target audience is receiving the message. And finally, number 3, the tracking studies. This type of studies usually consist of a series of interviews during the course of the campaign. The purpose is to determine the levels of exposure and effect that are being achieved by the advertising campaign. Since it is commonly agreed that the effects of advertising build over time, studies are usually conducted in waves or predetermined schedules. Tracking studies may be conducted at any time during the campaign at normal intervals of about 60 days. For some product categories, a shorter or longer time period may be required. It is not at all possible to measure advertisement effectiveness accurately, as there are many factors like making a brand image, increasing the sales, keeping people informed about the product, introducing new product, and so on, which affect the effectiveness of an advertisement. We all know that there are some companies who advertise at very low level, but still their products are a hit, and some companies indulge in very heavy advertisements, but they do not get the desirable results. But then there are some traditional and some modern tools to measure most of the effectiveness of an advertisement, through which the advertiser can or may get more and more information about how their ads and product are performing in the market. According to Philip Kotler and Armstrong, the gurus of marketing, there are 2 most popular areas which need to be measured for knowing the effectiveness of advertisement, and they are 1. Communication effect, 2. Sales effect. Many companies measure the effectiveness of their advertising campaign in terms of its communication effect, as how does the advertising create awareness, provide information, stimulate demand, enforce brand loyalty, and so on. In fact, there are companies that measure the effectiveness of their advertising in terms of its effect on company sales. However, most agree that measuring effectiveness of advertising in terms of sales effect is difficult, as there are many things to affect buying decisions other than just advertising. The effect of communication refers to the ability to reach with appropriate messages a more significant share of the public. Communication effect research consists of 3 types of researches. 1. The direct rating method. In this method, customers are directly asked to rate the advertisement, and then these ratings are calculated. 2. Portfolio tests. Here, the customers see the ads and listen carefully to the ads and all the contents of the ads, and then they are asked to recall the ad and the contents. Then the calculations are done with the help of this data. And finally, number 3, laboratory tests. Here, the apparatus to measure the heart rates, blood pressure, perspiration, etc. are used on the consumer after he watches the ad to know the physiological reactions of the body. The sales effect refers to the assessment of the capability of advertising to affect the sales volume and or the market share, regardless of the possible influence of other variables. Sales effect research totally depends on the sales of the company. The sales keeps varying from time to time. There are some factors affecting sales, like the product availability, the price of the product, the contents of the product, and sometimes the competitors. So this method is a little more difficult than the communication one. The company doing sales effect research generally bothers about the sales of the product. They try to know whether or not the money they are spending on the ads is enough or excess. Advertising is of no use if the defined objectives of communication are not achieved. So, it is necessary to evaluate the effectiveness of advertisement at different levels, starting from creation of ad copy to running of ad on media, and also after execution of the ad to know as to what extent the objectives have been achieved. The three types of tests applied in advertisement evaluation are 1. Pre-testing, 2. Concurrent testing, and 3. Post-testing. Advertising can be pre-tested at several points in the creative development process. Pre-testing helps the advertiser to make a final go or no-go decision about finished or nearly finished advertisement. Pre-testing methods refer to testing the potentiality of a communication message or ad copy before printing, broadcasting, or telecasting. There are a few different types of pre-testing methods. Let us first study the qualitative methods of pre-testing. Focus group. Focus group involves exposing the ad to a group of 8 to 12 respondents. Focus groups are used with surprising frequency for making final go or a no-go decision. A moderator facilitates discussion and walks the group through a series of issues that are outlined in the discussion guide. In-depth interview. In-depth interview involves one-on-one discussion with respondents. Interviews are very effective when a researcher has a good idea of critical issues but does not have a sense of the kind of responses one will get. This method can be effectively used to generate new advertisement concepts and ideas. Projective techniques. In this technique, the respondent is instructed to project himself into the situation and verbalize the thoughts. Projective technique can be very effective for evaluating ad concepts and for generating new ad concepts. But it cannot be used for making final decisions. Now let us look at the quantitative methods of pre-testing. The checklist method. Checklist method is used to test the effectiveness of the ad copy. The purpose of this method is to ensure that all elements of the ad copy are included with due importance in the advertisement. As it is a pre-test method, any omitted element of ad can be included in the copy before release of the advertisement. Consumer jury method. This method involves the exposure of alternative advertisements to a sample of jury or prospects. This test is designed to learn from a typical group of prospective customers. Advertisements which are unpublished are presented before the consumer jury either in personal interviews or group interviews, and their reactions are observed and responses are recorded. Sales area test. Under this method of advertising campaign is run in the markets selected for testing purposes. The impact of the campaign is evaluated by actual sales in the selected markets. The market with high sales is considered the best market for effective sales campaign. In other markets, suitable changes are made in the advertising campaign. The questionnaire method. It is a list of questions related to an experiment. The draft of an advertisement along with some relevant questions is to be sent to a group of target consumers or advertising experts. Their opinions are collected and analyzed to find out whether the proposed advertisement is satisfactory or not. The recall test. Under this method, advertising copies are shown to a group of prospects. After a few minutes, they are asked to recall and reproduce them. This method is used to find out how far the advertisements are impressive. The reaction test. The potential effect of an advertisement is judged with the help of certain instruments which measure heartbeats, blood pressure, pupil dilation, etc. Their reactions reveal the psychological or nervous effects of advertising. The readability test. All the listeners of advertisements cannot read it equally. So respondents are drawn from different socio-economic and geographical backgrounds. This method is used to find out the level of effectiveness when an advertisement is read. Eye movement test. The movements of eyes of the respondents are recorded by using eye observation camera when advertisements are shown to them in a screen. This helps to find out the attention value of advertisement. Concurrent testing is evaluated throughout the whole advertisement execution process. Tests are conducted while the audience is exposed to different types of media. Following are the types of concurrence testing methods. Consumer diaries. Diaries are provided to selected customers. They are also informed to record the details of advertisements they watch, listen or read. The diaries are then collected periodically. The result obtained from such a survey reveals the effectiveness of the advertisement. Coincidental surveys. This method is also called coincidental telephone method. Under this method, samples of customers are selected and calls are made at the time of broadcast of the advertisement program. The data obtained and analyzed will give a picture about the effectiveness of an advertisement. Electronic devices. Nowadays, electronic devices are widely used to measure the effectiveness of an advertisement. They are mainly used in the broadcast media. These are odometers, track electronic units, etc. Post-testing is done to know to what extent the advertising objectives are achieved. Following are the types of post-testing methods. Recognition test. Recognition test involves the ability of the viewers to correctly identify the ad, the brand or the message they were previously exposed to. The types of recognition test are: 1. Starch test. The starch test is applied only to print ads that have already run. The interviewer shows each respondent a magazine or newspaper containing the ads being tested. For each ad, the interviewer asks the respondents to reply to some ad-related questions. 2. The Bruzzen test. The Bruzzen test is conducted through mail surveys. Questionnaires containing frames and audio scripts from television commercials are sent to respondents, and respondents are asked whether they can recognize the ad and the brand. Number 3. The recall or the impact test. The recall test is designed to measure the impression of readers or viewers of the advertisement. If a reader has a favorable impression of the advertisement, he will certainly retain something of the advertisement. The measures of interest would be obtained by the interviewing the readers or viewers or listeners days after the advertisement or commercial is appeared in the newspaper or on TV. Interviewers ask the readers or viewers to answer some ad-related questions, and in response to the question asked, the reader reveals the accuracy and depth of his impression. As said earlier, it is not possible to measure each and every aspect of advertising effectiveness at the same time. So the suggestion is that the advertiser or the company should use the appropriate and different methods which are most suitable for the media under use. The company can hold surveys and product recognition tests. Questionnaire or feedback flyers can be distributed and customers could be asked to fill it up. Toll-free numbers can be highlighted on the ads so that customers can call up. The response rates can be increased by telling customers what to do. For example, some ads have lines in flashy color like "Hurry up" or "No one can eat just one" or "Be the first," etc. These are the traditional ways. Nowadays, the internet is considered as the modern tool for measuring the effectiveness of an advertisement. There are many ways for doing this, such as integrated direct marketing. This is an internet-based tool where they have a response corner designed on the websites. Whenever the customers visit the sites, they fill up their contact details and give feedbacks. Thus, the company supplies more information and sends newsletters and also gets the idea for further action. But then, it's not that only online advertisers have this facility, but advertisers who don't work online can also use coupons, discount vouchers, etc. to do this. There is an analysis tool available on the internet using which the advertiser will know how many customers are visiting the site, who are shopping online, how many pages are viewed, and so on, which in turn will help advertisers to measure the effectiveness. Internet is possibly the most easy, the cheapest and the most cost-effective way to measure the effectiveness, because here no money is wasted as the ad is only viewed when the customer wants to view it, whereas in normal print methods or using television, the ad sometimes goes unwatched or unattended and viewed for the sake of viewing. Let us now quickly summarize all of that we have learned today. In today's lecture, first of all, we discussed the evaluation of advertising effectiveness, the reasons and importance for evaluating the effectiveness of an advertising campaign. Measuring the effects of advertising is very important given the amount of investments needed for advertising. We also discussed the difficulties faced in evaluating the effectiveness of an advertising campaign. Next, we learned the 3 methods used to conduct advertising effectiveness research, namely the day after recall, the coincidental studies and tracking studies. We also learned the 2 most popular areas which need to be measured for knowing the effectiveness of an advertisement, that is the communication effect and the sales effect. Lastly, since it is necessary to evaluate the effectiveness of advertisements at different levels, starting from creation of ad copy to the running of ad in media, and also after execution of ad to know to what extent the objectives are achieved, we also discussed the different methods of pre-testing, concurrent testing and post-testing. So that is all for today. Hope you have understood the various topics discussed here. We'll see you again with another topic on advertising media choices. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.